They told you buying a house meant you'd made it. So you signed a 30-year contract with your future self. Now ask yourself this: if that house was really an investment, why did your freedom shrink the moment you got the keys? What if homeownership isn't building your wealth at all, but slowly converting your income into a very expensive lifestyle you're taught to call success? Buying a house stopped being a financial decision a long time ago. It became an identity test. Renting past a certain age feels like failure, not because the numbers don't work, but because society quietly treats renters like they're unfinished adults. So people buy homes to feel legitimate, to feel respected, to feel on track. The problem is, when identity makes the decision, math gets ignored, and expensive mistakes start to feel normal. Once identity pushes you toward buying, the next lie takes over, calling consumption an investment. A real investment puts money in your pocket. A house does the opposite. It demands payments, repairs, taxes, and attention just exist. Yet people speak about homes the way they speak about stocks. Imagine paying a monthly fee to use a gym and then calling yourself a gym owner. That's the confusion. Living in a house feels productive, so we assume it's profitable. But using something and owning an income-producing asset are not the same. The moment you stop paying, the illusion collapses. Once a house is labeled an investment, most people stop questioning where the money actually goes. They see a monthly payment and assume it's building something. But a large part of that payment never returns. It disappears quietly. Interest flows to the bank. Taxes flow to the city. Insurance flows to protect against risks you hope never happen. Then there's maintenance, the slow, unglamorous bleeding that never shows up in real estate ads. A leaking pipe, a dying appliance, a roof that ages whether you notice it or not. None of this builds ownership. It simply keeps the house from falling apart. Two people can live in identical homes, one renting, one owning, and often spend nearly the same amount each month. The difference is psychological. The renter knows they're paying for shelter. The owner believes they're building wealth, even when the math says otherwise. After the hidden costs come into view, most people retreat to one comforting thought: at least a monthly payment is manageable. This is where the real illusion lives. Homeownership trains you to think in monthly terms, not total cost. A house doesn't feel expensive because it never asks for everything at once. It asks slowly, predictably, quietly. 30 years of payments feel harmless when broken into monthly chunks, even when the total cost quietly doubles the price of the home. This is why people stretch their budgets to the edge. They don't ask, "What will this cost me over my life?" They ask, "Can I afford it this month?" That mindset works for subscriptions, not for leveraged assets. A manageable payment can still be a bad deal. Time doesn't reduce cost, it multiplies it. And the longer you stay focused on the monthly number, the easier it becomes to confuse affordability with wisdom. Once the monthly payment feels survivable, the down payment starts to feel like a milestone. Saving it becomes a badge of discipline. Handing it over feels like crossing into adulthood. But this is where the most dangerous illusion in homeownership lives. That lump sum doesn't make you safer. It makes you stuck. Imagine two people with identical incomes and identical savings. One puts their cash into a house. The other keeps it liquid, on paper. The homeowner looks richer overnight. They own something solid, something visible, something people respect. The renter looks unchanged. But wealth isn't about what you can point at. It's about what you can move. That down payment doesn't work for you anymore. It doesn't compound. It doesn't adjust when your life changes. It just sits there, locked behind drywall and concrete, silently dependent on a single neighborhood, a single market, and a single economic future. If opportunity shows up, a better job in another city, a business idea, a chance to lower your cost of living, that money can't respond. Accessing it means debt. Selling means fees. And in the early years, selling often means loss. What felt like progress turns into friction. The tragedy is that this commitment is sold as safety. But safety isn't permanence. Safety is adaptability. When your capital is flexible, you can absorb shocks. You can pivot. You can survive mistakes. When your capital is trapped, every decision becomes heavier. You stay in jobs you hate because the mortgage is waiting. You delay risks because your money can't move with you. The down payment didn't reduce uncertainty. It concentrated it. It placed a massive bet on one outcome and removed your ability to respond if that bet goes wrong. And that's not stability. That's exposure pretending to be security. Once your money is locked in place, movement becomes expensive. That's when renting starts to reveal its hidden power. Renting isn't passive or temporary by default. It's strategic. A renter isn't waiting. They're choosing flexibility. In a world where careers shift, industries vanish, and opportunity rarely appears where you expect it, the ability to move quickly is an asset. A renter can follow opportunity. A homeowner has to negotiate with it. A better job offer, a healthier environment, a lower cost city. These decisions are simple when your capital is liquid and your exit costs are low. When your money is trapped in a house, every option comes with friction. This flexibility compounds. A renter can adjust their living costs downward when income tightens. They can upgrade when life improves. They can downsize without destroying years of progress. A homeowner doesn't have that control. Their costs are fixed, but their income isn't. When life becomes unpredictable, fixed obligations become pressure. Renting absorbs volatility. Ownership magnifies it. There's also a psychological shift that happens when housing becomes a service instead of a project. Problems don't linger in your mind. Repairs don't steal your weekends. Decisions don't stack endlessly. That mental space matters. Time matters. Energy matters. When you're not managing a deteriorating asset, you can focus on building assets that actually grow. Renting doesn't mean avoiding responsibility. It means directing responsibility toward things that pay you back. This is why flexibility quietly creates leverage. Not financial leverage, but life leverage. When you can move, adapt, and redirect without punishment, you gain control. And control, more than ownership, is what creates real stability. The financial cost of homeownership is only half the story. The other half is the stress tax, small, constant, and rarely measured. Owning a house means carrying a mental checklist that never empties. Something is always aging, always wearing out, always waiting for its turn to break. A strange sound isn't just a sound. It's a potential expense. A weekend off isn't fully yours. It's a window for repairs. This low-level vigilance becomes normal, but normal doesn't mean harmless. Over time, this stress shapes behavior. Homeowners become cautious, not because they want to be, but because they have to be. Risks feel heavier when a mortgage depends on your next paycheck. Job changes feel dangerous. Breaks feel irresponsible. The house demands consistency, even when life doesn't offer it. Renting removes that weight. Problems are outsourced. Uncertainty is buffered. The renter doesn't manage decay. They report it. This difference affects more than mood. It affects momentum. When your attention is free, you can focus on learning, earning, or recovering. When your attention is split, progress slows. People underestimate how much energy homeownership quietly absorbs, not in dramatic moments, but in constant small ones. And those small drains add up. The house doesn't just cost money. It costs calm. It costs flexibility. And over time, it costs the ability to think clearly about what you actually want next. After dismantling the myths, it's important to slow down here. This isn't an argument against owning a home. It's an argument against buying one for the wrong reasons. There are situations where purchasing makes sense, not emotionally, not socially, but mathematically and personally. If you are confident you will stay in one place for a long time, not because you're afraid to move, but because your life is genuinely settled, ownership can work. Time is the main ingredient. Without it, the costs dominate the outcome. Buying also makes sense when flexibility is less valuable to you than control. Some people deeply value permanence, the ability to renovate, customize, and shape their space without permission. That preference is valid, as long as it's recognized as a lifestyle choice, not confused with a wealth strategy. The danger comes when comfort is mistaken for growth. The numbers matter too. If the cost of owning is genuinely close to the cost of renting in your area, and your finances are strong enough to absorb surprises without panic, buying can be reasonable. But those conditions are rare, and they should be proven, not assumed. A house should fit into a stable financial system. It should not become the system itself. The mistake most people make isn't buying a home. It's believing they have to. When ownership is chosen deliberately. With eyes open and expectations realistic, it can support a good life. When it's chosen out of pressure or fear, it quietly limits one. The difference isn't the house. It's the reason you bought it. By the time most people reach adulthood, wealth has already been defined for them. It looks like ownership. It looks like permanence. It looks like having your name on something solid. But real wealth behaves differently. It moves. It adapts. It supports you when conditions change. A house feels safe because it's tangible. But tangibility is not the same as strength. Wealth isn't about what you can stand inside of. It's about what can stand behind you when life shifts unexpectedly. Income-producing assets work even when you're tired, distracted, or stuck. They don't require weekends. They don't demand attention to keep functioning. They grow quietly while you live your life. A primary residence doesn't do that. It consumes income so you can exist comfortably inside it. That's not a flaw. It's just its role. The mistake is asking a lifestyle expense to perform like an investment. When housing becomes the centerpiece of a financial life, everything else becomes secondary. Risk tolerance shrinks. Opportunities get filtered through fear. Decisions are made to protect the house instead of improve the future. True wealth reverses that dynamic. It gives you breathing room. It gives you time. It gives you the ability to say no without panic. The quiet truth is that many people feel rich only when their lifestyle is expensive. But lifestyle isn't wealth. It's consumption at scale. Wealth is optionality. It's the power to adjust without collapse. When you understand that, the need to prove success through ownership fades. What replaces it isn't insecurity, it's clarity. Most people will never realize they had a choice. They will buy a house because everyone before them did. They will call it an investment because that's what they were taught to say. And they will spend decades protecting a decision they never fully examined. Not because it made them wealthy, but because admitting otherwise would be too painful. Years pass quietly this way. Income rises, expenses rise with it, and the house absorbs whatever remains. Not dramatically, slowly. So slowly that it feels normal. The dream doesn't collapse. It just underdelivers. And by the time that becomes obvious, changing course feels impossible. The mortgage is still there. The exit costs are still there. The script has already been completed. This is the part nobody likes to talk about. Not every financial mistake explodes. Some just settle in and stay for life. They show up as smaller choices, safer choices, delayed risks, missed opportunities that never feel connected to the house, but always are. The cost isn't just money. It's the future you didn't build because too much of your present was already committed. Your house won't betray you. It will do exactly what it was designed to do. Consume income in exchange for comfort. The betrayal only happens if you expect it to do more than that. If you expect it to save you. If you expect it to prove something about you. The unsettling truth is this. Many people will reach the end of their working lives owning a home and still needing one more paycheck. Not because they failed, but because they followed instructions without questioning the outcome. The question isn't whether owning a house is good or bad. The question is whether the life it quietly locks you into is the one you would have chosen if no one had told you what success was supposed to look like. And once you ask that honestly, the script doesn't end. It just loses its authority.